Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Mindful Matters, and this particular episode is going to be an interesting one. This is going to be one of those where you guys are probably going to fasten the seatbelts, and for the young entrepreneurial mind, you're going to start listening closely because that's exactly what we're going to talk about. The point of discussion today is going to be youth in business, and I've got with myself here boss Tahir Shams, your host Badi as per some previous episodes. Let's start right into it. The Holy Trinity. You know, I'm sure you, me, we've grown up in similar households whereby the three options presented to you, and I'm sure you know a lot of the audience as well: doctor, lawyer, engineer. And it seems that you've gone on a completely different tangent. How did that come about?
Well, look, I think the Holy Trinity, just to understand that, I think first we've got to think about where it came from, right? We've got to understand that our parents have migrated to this country, right? And once they got here, the most important thing for them was safety and security.
Putting food on the table.
Putting food on the table in our stomachs and make sure that we go to good schools, you know, we get a good education and that we succeed in life. Those are that was the main criteria for them.
Exactly, as sort of parents would do, because at the end of the day, you've come to a country without any sort of security, without knowing what it's going to be like.
Exactly.
And I fully understand and respect, how they put themselves through that. And it's actually so hard to imagine, like, they were our age, quite literally our age when they did
It's
this,
crazy to think, isn't it?
Move to a completely new country, and all of a sudden to put aside your goals, to put aside your ambitions, to think, no, I need to do this for my kids.
Exactly. Like, it's very easy to understand that, look, this was their goal, right? To migrate to another country, and we talk about our goals and where we want to be. For them, it simply could just be moved to a more secure country, right? And talking about that, I think it's very important to understand where they come from and where that mindset comes from. Yeah. And that's why we're bred this thought that you can only be a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer, right? But it's also important to realize that for them, those were the three occupations that made the most money.
In their country.
In their time, right? But it's also worth noting that now, in 2021, in such a beautiful country like Australia, you can be in other industries that can make equally, if not more money, right? So then when you think about it, you can't really blame them, okay? So for us, we're lucky to have the opportunity to move towards where our passions lie, where our skill sets are good. And that's why I think getting bogged down between the three options isn't the only choice, but you do have to have a good case if you do want to move into a separate direction.
And that separate direction would, in this case, be starting your own business.
That's right. Yep.
Right. For someone like myself, so the audience knows a bit about me as well. I work part-time.
Nice.
And of course, one of the things, I work part-time in sales, to be a bit more particular.
That's awesome.
Now, for someone like me, you're working on a per hour sort of rate, and you're putting in effort, because at this stage it's all about learning. Like for me particularly, it's not more so money at this stage, it's more so about experiences and what I'm learning that in the future maybe the experiences I'm learning now could develop into
That's very important.
Business idea. But it comes to a point with your hard work, with your dedication to your job, that you start to think, okay, well, I'm working X amount of hours to improve someone else's business. And here we are with entrepreneurship, whereby you can work for yourself to get yourself to the highest goal, which is self-actualization. Tell us a bit about your entrepreneurial journey, like if we're talking about the rat race versus starting your own business, and why you might want to start your own business.
I think, look, for me, my journey started when I was 7. Okay. Right, so that was a while ago.
Way back.
Yeah, and I started when I was 7 years old, and I remember back in the days, to keep this very quick, one of my cousins installed a program on my computer, and I was just sitting there, just playing around with it. Back then, there was no YouTube, there was no forums in which that you could go out and learn. So basically, I used to just sit around, just make little animations of ball bouncing, and as soon as I realized how to do that, I found a lot of joy in it. It was one thing that I straight away could zone out, and it was my zen.
Even as a 7-year-old.
Oh, look, as a 7-year-old, when I learned how to do that, I did it for 3 years every Saturday, to the point where my parents were like, "What is wrong with this kid?" right? They never stopped me, but
even then they're seeing the young entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Tahir Shams.
Yeah. So fast forward, growing up, I did a lot of skits with my cousins. I loved being able to create content. It was one of the things that my family can track back to the start of Tahir. And as soon as obviously I was at school, finished off high school, and that was where my first business started, which was in the wedding industry. That didn't last too long. And that is because I didn't have the business knowledge that I have today, alhamdulillah, to be able to sustain and grow that business. I knew how to make videos and I knew that I had a great product, but that wasn't enough. And that isn't enough, right?
Okay. What I'm going to do is, so you've told us that from an early age of 7 years old, for example, you've already had that kind of mindset that I can turn something that I'm good at and I can do repetitively. Right?
Look, yes and no. I didn't see this as a business long term all the time until I'd say 3 years ago, realistically.
Okay, yeah. So like back then it was
because it's worth noting. Yeah, because it's worth noting that when I was doing my first business, it was on the side, right? So I spent 8 years in the financial sector, and for me, I thought, look, stable job. It's something where I can learn great skills, and I was working full time, and then obviously after hours and on the weekends I was doing the stuff on the side. So it's not necessarily that from the start I was ready for it, but I would definitely say that the experience that I've gained in the financial sector and working for some large corporations has definitely helped me grow my business rapidly.
It's like there's this quote. It's like 9 to 5 pays the bills, 6 to 10 builds the empire. So I could imagine like 16, 17, 18-year-old Tahir, working full time. And 9 to 5 would have, of course, been the job that you are doing. And 6 to 10...
Probably like 2 hours of commuting like in the morning and the afternoon, but yeah.
Sydney transport. Let's not get started.
Yeah.
Right? But then the 6 to 10, so those hours that you're spending gaining experience sort of on the outside, out of your work, is what led you to the stage you're in today.
Yes.
And the reason I want to dive into this is because as a young person myself, who is in that stage where at the moment I'm working a 9 to 5, looking to do something on the side, what is the life of an entrepreneur? What is the life of a young person starting his own business? Because a lot of us, we have this Hollywood ideal.
Yep.
Where it's quite literally laying back in your chair like this,
I wish, man.
Feet up, and that's what owning your own business is like, but... for the audience and for myself, what's it like?
Look, like you explained in Hollywood, that is the ultimate goal, to be able to lay back in your chair and have that boss title. I don't have that yet. I double up as the content, as the digital marketer. I sometimes take out the trash. Like that's the honesty behind it, really. It's not unicorns and rainbows all the day, every day. Every day you're putting out fires, you're trying to come up with new solutions. You're constantly thinking of how can you progress your business forward, right? There is no day in which you don't learn something new. That's very important. And that's something that I've experienced in the last 2 years, that every single day I can for sure say that I've learned something new. May that be about my industry, my clients, or may that be about myself, right? And I think it's very important knowing that in the last, ever since I've started this, let's say back since 2014, I have failed many, many times, right? And it's the times when you fail, you start learning a lot about yourself, right? So I think in business, I've learned more about how I react in certain situations. And that's typically what my day looks like. I'm constantly reevaluating where I am, where my headspace is at, and am I even able to effectively run this business? So it's not like you just come in and there's people working for you and just output money. It's not like that. I wish it was, right? But there's a level of excitement that you feel every day, or I'd say every couple of weeks, when you sit down and you review the last couple of weeks and you go, damn, I did that.
Yeah.
Right?
That was your work for yourself.
Exactly. So it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of failing, but then it's a lot of learning how to get back up and getting the solution ready for the client.
On that point of resilience, I think what a lot of people or young people aren't taught about business is failure. And with failure, I just don't mean, oh, you know, my business failed, so I'm going to go bankrupt, and, you know, I'm going to go back to something secure. But failure in the sense that if the way or the projection of your business, what you initially had, doesn't go to plan, how can I bounce back?
I've got a couple of steps that I go through every single time, and I think one of the examples I think we discussed before we did the podcast. You asked me, is like, have you ever failed in the business? I said there's many, and I actually had to think of one that I could explain to you. But like one great example was when we had a client for about 9 months, and they ceased work with us.
Long term, so like
it was a long term, it was a long term client, month to month, and we lost their, I guess you call it, their contract, only because we weren't able to deliver on the turnaround that we promised them. Okay, so with that example, I think it's very important to know that when that moment came in, they said, "Look, we're pulling the plug; it's not happening anymore." You could go two ways about it. You could go, "Oh, damn, I failed," right? Literally like that. Or you could go, "Okay, why are they not with us anymore?" Right? We promised them a turnaround. That didn't happen. We promised them a certain level of quality. That didn't happen. We promised them a high level of communication. That didn't happen. Okay? Now, sitting down and actually going, okay, these are the 3 reasons they're not with us anymore, and making sure that, one, you can overcome those issues, that they don't happen again, and you don't replicate it. Because the most important thing, I believe, is that success is very easy to carry forward, but carrying forward your failures is going to be your biggest downfall. Right? If you don't identify them straight off the bat in the moment, and you break them down to the T, right? Is it because I called them 5 minutes late, or is it because I didn't communicate with them? Whatever it may be, right? It is important to realize what it is, because next time it comes around, you'll just know that, okay, I'm definitely not going to do that thing because it didn't work, right? So sometimes knowing the things that you shouldn't do is better than knowing the things that you should do.
And it's like almost, as they say, like if at once you fail, try and try again.
100%.
Right? And so for someone like myself, I go to uni.
Yeah.
And with uni, for example, you've got a semester whereby you've got your really hard subjects.
Yeah.
And I guess I can relate to this business sort of ideal as well, in that if there's a subject that you're having a really hard time in, and to the extent you failed that subject, and then you start to evaluate, okay, was it because these specific dot points within this subject, when they were being taught, I was kind of just lacking, I was wasting time on my phone.
I'm getting excited because you get it. Exactly that. Exactly that, yeah.
And that then led to me not being prepared enough for the exam, which then led to me failing the subject overall.
And now you're ready, because next time you sit the exam again, you know exactly where you fell short.
And not only that, like I know for future subjects, I know that if this is a benchmark I need to hit, if a HD average, if a distinction average, you know, whatever it may be that you want to hit, you know, for me to get those marks, I can't be failing.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that negative experience, and me learning from those negative experiences and carrying on the sort of corrective measures into the future is what will lead me to hit that benchmark.
That's right. And that's how you overcome failure. Just simply summarize it. Just know what you did wrong, right? And if you don't know straight off the bat, then take your time and reflect upon it. Okay. Because it's very important you do. Otherwise, you're going to do it again and again and again. And then you're going to start feeling this, why do I keep failing, right? And it's because, just like you said, you don't study enough, or you don't study for the right things, or you're not effective in studying. So there could be so many different variations in that example. But it's important that you do sit down and you reflect upon it. And I think the second part would definitely be have the courage to fail. Because if you don't fail, you won't know what you shouldn't be doing.
Exactly right. There's an interesting fact I want to bring up. The fact that 60% of Australian startups fail within the first year.
Yep.
That means sort of 2/3. And around that percentage of people who try to start their own business, especially young people, they're actually bound to fail.
Yep.
Would you take that as something negative, that, okay, you know, maybe my 9 to 5 is secure and I should stay there? Or do you look at that and think, you know what, let me take that risk? Because 100%. I know even if I fail, okay, I can always go back to that because I'm qualified as an engineer, let's say, for example. But I'd rather take the opportunity than miss the opportunity to become a millionaire.
Absolutely. I do it for my personal sanity, right? Like I would love to prove that fact wrong, okay? Because it's something to learn from. It's very important to go, okay, that is a fact, right?
Yeah.
So many people are failing, but why are they failing? That's how my brain works. Why are they failing? Is it because they're not planning correctly? Are they not in the right industries? So then that's where my brain starts tuning and goes, okay, well, if someone else has failed, I can learn from those failures and move forward in my industry. So that doesn't faze me at all. That doesn't faze me at all, because look, at the end of the day, if I become a stat, then I'll know that maybe it's not for me, right? Or maybe what I did initially wasn't the right thing to do.
And it's totally fine that you started a business and it didn't fail.
Absolutely, 100%. There's nothing to be ashamed of, right? Like there's like for me, like I'm a perfect example. My first business is not around anymore, right? And I honestly I wouldn't be more proud of it, because what I carry forward from it is the experience of the things that I know today not to do.
And that experience led to a future more successful business.
Absolutely.
Which, is running, and which, of course, for you is providing you that source of comfort.
100%.
Okay. Now that we know that, for example, with failure, this is something that you're going to have to expect. We know that with business, you're going to have to be resilient if you want to go down that route. One thing, especially for young people, that I'd like answered for myself personally, because as I said earlier, it's something that I myself would one day, inshallah, be able to run a business.
Inshallah. Yeah.
What kind of skills do I need as a young person to be able to run my own business?
I think to successfully be able to run your own business, there's a couple of things that you need to be good at. One of them is to be able to communicate openly.
Okay.
Right? Because at the end of the day, as a business, and Wes Pye said this on an earlier episode, and I loved it. It's like when you have a business, it's like sending out birthday cards, right?
Yeah,
you're inviting everyone to come.
This example, I love
exactly, and I loved it. He said it so well. It's like you're sending out invitation cards, right? And you want to make your invitation card as clear and concise to what the event's going to be.
Yeah.
Okay. And at the same time, you need to be able to communicate your message and your solution. So being able to speak to someone like this, like being able to talk to someone confidently and explain to them what it is that you do and how you can help someone, that's very important. The second thing is problem solving. Okay. You need to be able to solve problems, because there's this misconception where people think that I can make exuberant amounts of money, right, and not have to do much for it. But I think one thing, me and my business partner, we have learned one thing, that the more money you make, the bigger the problem you're solving. Okay,
exactly right.
So it's equal. It's all in proportion, right? So being able to resolve high level problems will allow you to be successful in business. So being creative with how you solve the problems. You don't need to always take the traditional route. You need to be able to think on your feet and be able to go, okay, well, how do I solve this client's problem? How do I provide a service that will help someone that will help you progress further?
Okay.
And then the third point I'd say is determination. Have courage. Just believe that on the other side, there is something greater, right? Like you cannot expect yourself to execute a 10-year plan in 90 days.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
Exactly that, right? So if you have unrealistic expectations of yourself, then you're not going to be able to sustain yourself. And at the end of the day, I one quote that I love is people overestimate what they can achieve in a year, and people underestimate what they can achieve in 10.
So it's always about what you're doing now, whether that be gym, whether that be uni, whether that be part-time work. Strive for determination. So make sure you're focused at what you're doing. Strive for communication. So if I, as a youth, can be involved in the SRC at school, or if I can be involved in a sales role where I'm speaking to people day to day, like,
Absolutely.
that's my job. If I, as a youth, could be involved in like online courses that teach problem solving, even to the extent of sports. Sports teaches problem solving.
Absolutely.
And the day every sport's got
You're
tactics.
a soccer player, and when you're in a tough situation, when you're 3-0 down,
right, you have to pull something out.
You have to pull something out somewhere, right?
Right.
You know, the time's clicking away, and you're like, what are we going to do? What strategy are we going to use? And it's exactly that, right? It gives me goosebumps thinking about it. But that's what business is, right? Every day you got a problem. You look at each other and you go, well, we have to come up with a solution. All right. So it's exactly that, being able to think on your feet, being able to communicate that solution to someone, and then also have this gut feeling that, you know what? Yeah, I can fix this problem. So those three things work in synergy very well together. And if you can work on those three things growing up, and I'm still, every single day I'm learning, right? I don't think I'll ever have all the answers, but be excited to learn this stuff, because it's not going to just help you with business. It's going to help you with, communicating will help you
with
life, with
relationships,
with a relationship with your mum and dad. You know, being able to talk to your mum and dad at a much higher level, right? Being able to tell them how your day was, rather than not saying, "Oh yeah, I had a good day." You know, sitting down, talking to them, may that be your parents, your siblings, your friends, your other family members. It just extends so much more further than business. And I think that's something people should strive to do. And inshallah, they'll be very successful in their pursuit.
One more thing that I would like to touch on, because obviously now that we've gone through the entire process of, business, so your example being already in business, my example being someone looking to go into business with my sort of overall parameters, right? Like I will go to uni, you're already there.
Yep.
How can Jamaat work tee into all of this? Because I remember you used to work at MTA. I think you told me that MTA was one of the biggest reasons that enabled you not only to get the skills, but get the business acumen to get where you are today.
Absolutely. Like I can definitely say to you that I would not be in the position I am if it wasn't for MTA.
Alhamdulillah.
Right, alhamdulillah. Like if it wasn't for me being young and getting the opportunity to pick up some really expensive cameras and, help out wherever I could, I would not have the skill set. I wouldn't have the passion. I wouldn't have the drive to do it. Right. And to this day, I can tell you right now, the people that I work with and the people that work next door to me, they are all from MTA. Yep. You know, the mindset that we've fostered over the years is that we've stuck together. Right. It does help that we're family, but at the same time, it helps because we come from the same start. We all started
struggle.
Exactly. Right. And we all come from the same place. We learned the same skills at the same place. So I think MTA has been a massive part. And, being able to be on a podcast like this, I could never have dreamed it. I could never imagine.
Here we are.
Here we are, right?
Doing it.
And at the same time, I think you mentioned how can the Jamaat help? I think the Jamaat are doing strides in Ijtimas, and they're opening the forum up to people that are in industries and getting younger people to speak to them, like business events. I think that's great. But I think overall, just going to the masjid and just talking to other young people to help you learn how to communicate. You're in a safe environment. You're able to say certain things. You're in a safe bubble, so you can talk to them just like how me and you are, right? That's how we're connected, right? And being able to help each other is something that will go a long way.
Exactly right. So to kind of tee everything in, what we've got is, yes, you've got a lot of young people want to go into business. You need certain skills to be able to get there. You need a certain resilience to get there. You need to be able to, or you need to be prepared to fail. Yeah, because that's one of those things that's inevitably going to come up. What's your advice to youth when it comes to 2021, starting your own business or being in a position where you may be able to start your own business in the future, in the scope of, or given the scope of Jamaat work as well? What's your final word to the audience?
Look, be prepared, because the most important thing is that it's not just about leaving high school or leaving uni and starting your own business.
Yeah, because that'll be like too much expense. It's something.
It's not even
Australia,
it's not even
hard to do.
It's not even just about the expenses, but it's also because you don't have the right experience, right? Once again, like I mentioned earlier, I used to work for a large corporation in the financial sector for 8 years, right? And that's helped me bring a lot of their systems and their way of thinking into my business. Right. So it's extremely important that you don't just go, okay, I'm going to do it on my own. You probably can. I'm not going to say you're not going to, but my suggestion is that get experience, open your eyes to all the opportunities that you can, right? Before you go into this, because you'd rather know more than less. okay?
And
Because you are going into a very risky environment. You're going to make a risk assessment and obviously go into it, but it is important that you have some sort of backing that you feel comfortable with, in my opinion, right? So if you're going to business in 2021, I'd say, one, make sure you're online. Two, make sure you have good experience and a good backing. And three, best of luck. Really, like, anything's possible.
Yeah,
Alhamdulillah,
go get it.
Go get it. Like at the end of the day, like, alhamdulillah, like the blessings that me and my business partner, which is also my brother, we've received over the last 2 years, I could never have dreamt of it, right? Like there's certain moments where we look at each other and we go, alhamdulillah, like, whoa,
Like this was us.
like we did this, right? And at the end of the day, like, just go get it, pray, and just do the best you can. That's
and
my
let
advice.
God.
Let God take care of the rest. That's it. So, but give it your best shot. Make sure you come out of that and go, I had nothing left, and make that your everyday.
I think to sum it up, this is a podcast I actually enjoyed a lot because I
Thanks,
know
man.
a year down the line I can watch this again and I've got that concrete sort of answer, that substance to go back to, and not only that, I've got the life experience of an experienced business person that I can always refer to.
Exactly.
One thing I'd like the audience to do is any questions you've got for us in regards to this episode. If you have a business idea and you want the man himself, Tahir, to answer, ask FM/Mindful Matters. You know the go. We've been mentioning it in every episode. We'd love your response on this particular podcast as well. Feel free to leave the comments down below. And let's get asking away. Let's try and build Hudam. Let's try and get more young entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see all the young guns in the Jamaat right now, and to see how much potential there is.
Exactly.
It's exciting.
So much potential in these boys.
Yeah.
I can just see it.
Yeah.
I
Inshallah.
can just see, and we went from, sort of just playing in the dirt upstairs, soccer comps in the Ijtimars, and here we are as Australian Khuddam, as young Australian Khuddam, talking about business on a podcast.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's going to...
Thank you so much to the audience.
Jazakallah.
Thank you, Tahir. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much.
I'll catch you soon. That's
Thanks,
it for
guys.
today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.